Hello, my name is Olivia Kellogg, and I will be presenting about the outbreak of salmonella infections linked to pot pies. Step 1 is background information. Salmonellosis is caused by a bacteria named Salmonella. Side effects include diarrhea, abdominal cramps, and a fever. Salmonella usually comes from contamination from animal feces or raw meat/poultry. In particular, salmonella comes from the intestinal tracts of animals. It is always important to watch out for contamination. However, as a consumer, it is hard to determine if the food is safe just by looking at it. During the outbreak, there were a total of 396 cases reported, and it is also important to note that more Americans now consume microwavable frozen food for convenience. Step 2 is to analyze the current situation. It is important to address the risks associated with frozen food that contain raw food and the importance of ensuring the customer safety. One strength for the organization is that the CDC has access to many resources and opportunities for research, and they have the capacity to reach a large audience. Anyone that has access to the internet can reach their websites and educate themselves about anything related to health and disease. One weakness is that the CDC can only educate people on where salmonella comes from and how it can affect someone that has consumed it. Contaminations are usually spotted after someone has been infected. However, the CDC does not have information on how to really identify if food has been contaminated beforehand. One opportunity is that the CDC could impose stricter regulations, especially on the precautions that manufacturers should take to prevent contamination. It is also an important opportunity to educate consumers about how to microwave their food properly. One threat faced by the CDC is that the contamination is hard to identify by simply looking at food. Thus, lots of accidents can happen that are never reported, which can then cause dangerous outbreaks. It is hard to rely on customers to cook food thoroughly. One goal is to open an investigation for the outbreak of salmonella by working with public health officials in multiple states, as well as the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Food Safety and Inspection Program. Step 3 is to prioritize core issues. The salmonella outbreak occurred across 41 states with a total of 396 cases. Bacteria was present in the raw food that came in the packages. However, many thought that the food was pre-cooked. Customers did not microwave their food correctly, therefore the food was not cooked thoroughly. One issue was inconsistent and unclear instructions on the food labels, customers' unawareness that the food was NRTE, which stands for not ready to eat, and the dangerous presence of raw food and the customer's failure to prepare the food correctly. Step 4 is to analyze alternatives. The case solution was the recall of pot pies from ConAgra to conduct an investigation of the cause and effects of the exposure. One theoretical perspective is it would be beneficial to apply the health belief model to this case because then customers would have a better understanding of their perceived benefits, barriers, and threats, self-efficacy, and cues to action in relation to the salmonella contamination. This will allow the CDC and public health officials to encourage awareness as well as precautions one should take when consuming frozen food. Alternative solutions and approaches involve increasing awareness among customers and educating them on the products that they are buying and minimizing the presence of raw food in meals, and this is the manufacturer's part. Step 5 is recommendations. One recommendation is to educate customers on the food that they buy, especially frozen food, along with the risks that come with purchasing it. Recommendation number 2 is to set guidelines that manufacturers have to follow for the consumer safety. For example, having clear labels, consistent instructions, and warning on the food label. Another example is to limit how much raw substance should be allowed in the food. For example, there should be a limit on how much raw chicken is included in the pot pie. Step 6 is an action plan. Manufacturers should prioritize the safety of their customers by providing clear instructions on how to properly prepare their food. By 2022, there should be a standard set for how much raw food is allowed in each meal. It is important to minimize this amount by as much as possible. By early 2023, if companies are putting raw food in their products, they should establish guidelines for their workers on how to properly handle the food and how to avoid cross-contamination. In late 2023, customers should be aware of the wattage of their microwaves so that they can properly heat up their food. Households should also acquire a food thermometer to check the temperature of their food, which will determine if the food is cooked thoroughly. By 2024, companies could supply a supplementary food thermometer in some of their meals. This would cost slightly more, however, it would help out the customers who have not yet acquired one. Step 7 is my opinion. I personally opt for eating food with fresh ingredients as much as possible, rather than eating pre-made food. It is a healthier option. However, I do eat some frozen food for the convenience. When I do, I make sure to read all labels thoroughly. After learning about the presence of raw food in some products that I assumed were pre-made, I make sure to follow all instructions to make sure it is thoroughly cooked. I also have a food thermometer, which, in my opinion, is one of the safest ways of determining how hot the food is. Thank you.